So good afternoon. My name is Dan Zimmerbeer. I'm the Education and Instructional Technology Librarian here in Joyner Library's Teaching Resources Center at East Carolina University. And today we're going to talk about co-teaching with the school librarian. And I encourage you to stop me, ask questions. On the bottom of your screen, you see a little widget with a person with their hand raised. You can click on that, or you can just type something into the chat box. In the bottom right-hand corner is a little purple tab. Click on that, and it looks like most of you have found that tab to access the chat box, and you can type something in there, and I'll get a little notification, and we can stop, and I can answer your question. So without further ado, let's get going. So today's takeaways are going to be pretty straightforward. We need to start by defining the role of a school librarian, and that role has changed in the last few years, especially since the North Carolina General Assembly passed a couple state laws in 2013, one on digital competencies, and the second on this transition over to digital instruction materials, which include open educational resources. And what we'll find, and hopefully I'll enlighten you a little bit, if you're not already familiar with the role and responsibilities of a school librarian, I'll hopefully show you how a school librarian's current skill set already fits in very nicely with these transitions. And so we'll also, I'll also hopefully try to give you some ideas on how you can identify some common interests that you might have with your school library media coordinator. And then we'll talk about some things you can do to start planning some instruction to co-teach with your school library media coordinator as well. And finally, throughout the entire session today, everything in purple is a connection to the North Carolina Digital Learning Competencies for Teachers. And I'll talk, and as we go along, I'll point some of those out and talk about some specific ones as we move along. So I'm not going to go into all of the research in the last 20 years that's been conducted and shows unequivocally that school librarians have an impact on the student learning experience, and a positive impact at that. I mean, generally speaking, students, middle grades, elementary, high school, K through 12, if there's a certified school librarian in their school, it's almost guaranteed that reading and writing scores on end of grade assessments or other state assessments will take a 10% dip if there wasn't one, if that position was eliminated. And so Keith Curry-Lance, he's the founder of the Colorado Library Research Service, and he's done a lot of school library impact studies over the years. And I've talked to other teachers and administrators about his work and what the Library Research Service has done, and they automatically dismiss his research. Oh, it's just librarians doing research on librarians. But the funny thing is, Keith Curry-Lance isn't even a librarian. He started the Colorado Library Research Service because he had a hunch, and it was a pretty good one, that school librarians had an impact. And he saw that a lot of school districts across the country were beginning to eliminate this position in hiring, using that money and reappropriating it for textbooks, for technology, or this, that, or the other thing. And so he wanted to find out what impact they had. And what he's found is it's a pretty big impact. So I encourage you to check out his stuff and his work. The Center for International Scholarship in School Libraries at Rutgers has also done a fair amount of research on the impact of school librarians on the student learning experience and student academic success. And there's starting to get to be more and more research done outside of the United States, especially in England and in Europe, on the impact of school librarian. And it's all been very positive results. And all of this has been replicated in multiple states here in the United States. The last place, I believe, Keith Curry-Lance conducted research was in South Carolina. Before that was Pennsylvania. And for the most part, it's found the same thing. But despite this, there seems to be a bit of a disconnect. With everything moving and transitioning into a digital world, librarians are kind of pigeonholed into, oh, their skills are just for print resources. And so we get articles like this, The Forgotten Partners. So this was from 2011 and was written by a couple faculty members here at East Carolina University, and focuses on school librarians being able to partner and co-teach with special education teachers. But it still rings true today, because school administrators, and I've been talking to people at the North Carolina DPI about this over the last couple of weeks. School administrators they're so focused on supporting classroom teachers because they have the most direct contact with their students on a day-to-day basis, on supporting them with the implementing and developing mastery over the digital learning competencies and integrating digital instruction materials into the classroom, that school librarians are kind of being left out of the loop and aren't getting the support that they need, or aren't getting the opportunities they should have to co-teach and collaborate and partner with classroom teachers to strengthen what they're already doing in their own classrooms. So we'll start getting into a little more detail on that. But first, I want you to think of, who do you turn to for help when you develop lessons or assessments and evaluations, or anything that deals with part of your job responsibilities as a classroom teacher. This is some old research, and I need to find some. This is from 2011, 2012, but I need to see if it's been updated lately. But for the most part, teachers, they look to colleagues, especially in their own department. They look towards their mentor, the internet, Pinterest, now with Twitter and their professional learning network there, district resources if they have them. Then comes the principal. And so school librarians have a tendency to not even make that top 5 or top 6 places teachers turn to for help, whether it's finding content or resources to use in the classroom, or developing lessons and activities and learning experiences in classrooms for their students. Students aren't much different. When it comes to academic research, students will first turn to their friends. They don't understand an assignment that a teacher gives them. They will go to their friend first before the teacher. They'll try and find the answer out at home using the internet. They'll go to YouTube. They'll go to Wikipedia. They'll go to any other resource that their friend turns them to. They'll use the library, but not talk to the librarian. Finally, they'll go to their teacher for help. And then last but not least, librarians finally make the list. And so what I'm hopefully able to do today is to push librarians up a couple notches. And hopefully you see them as a resource that you can turn to, and a very credible resource, because there are so many teacher librarians here in North Carolina that are board certified, that have been classroom teachers before they turn to the library and switch careers a little bit. And so they are a valuable resource that that tend to be underutilized, and even worse, especially in some states. I taught in Arizona and in Michigan, and both states were trying to shed librarians as quickly as possible because students can, everything's online. Students can find things online. All the databases are online. All of these reputable resources are online. And students know how to use technology, right? Right. And so I lived in just outside of Grand Rapids in Michigan, in Kent County. Of the 21 local educational agencies in Kent County, there was one school district that had a teacher librarian in every elementary school, middle school, and high school. And it's not a coincidence that they were one of the best school districts with some of the highest test scores in the state, while everybody else ditched their school librarians. And so hopefully, as we move along today, we'll be able to start looking at the role of a school librarian and how it might be able to help you and assist you and strengthen what you already do in the classroom. So are those perceptions a reality? So, excuse me, these are the roles that a school librarian normally plays. This comes from their governing body, the American Association for School Librarians. They also come from the Future Ready Librarians Initiative, from the Alliance of Excellence in Education, and the teacher, instructional partner, information specialist, technology specialist, because there are so many districts here in North Carolina that are lucky. The lucky ones have an instructional technology facilitator or consultant at each school. As my experience in talking to people out in the field here in Eastern North Carolina, there's maybe 2, 3 for the entire district, and they rotate around and visit the schools throughout the week. And so there are a number of challenges that come with this. Decrease in school library funding and staff, finding common planning time to work with a teacher. A lot of school librarians, because the media center is understaffed, they have to work on a fixed schedule instead of being flexible in scheduling planning time and scheduling lessons and activities and co-teaching time on whenever it pops up, and being able to be flexible in order to meet those demands. And so the tendency is to be on a fixed schedule, which really limits how much a school librarian can do to help classroom teachers throughout the school. Classroom boundaries. As a former teacher, I can attest to this, where I had that attitude as well. This is my classroom. It's not yours. You're just visiting. And now that I'll admit that I'm a bit biased, but it's given me a new perspective on what's got, as a librarian, it gives me a new perspective on what school librarians can do and how they can help teachers as well. If I ever went back into the classroom, I would have absolutely no trouble handing over my class and giving my school librarian free rein in a lesson or an activity that we're co-teaching. Of course, it goes without saying, those last 2 points, teachers have an enormous amount of pressure to cover all of the material set forth in the essential standards, and then of course the pressure of testing as well. So there are a lot of challenges to overcome, but I think with a little bit of planning and organization, I think we can move past those challenges and move past those artificial boundaries that we create in dividing lines. We'll bring my class over to the library, and then you take over. Or when you come, I invite you over to my class I'm still in charge. It's school librarians and classroom teachers all have one common goal, and that's maybe even two, probably more. But the two that I'm thinking of right now are creating engaging and meaningful learning experiences for their students, but also student academic success, ultimately student academic success. And so those boundaries, in order for that to work and to have an enormous impact, positive impact on students, I think those boundaries need to be blurred a little bit. Standards and expectations, all I'll say about this, these are all the things, all the different standards and expectations that school librarians need to be familiar with in order to run an effective school library program. And so they have just as much on their plate as classroom teachers as well. They may not have the same requirements of covering from point A to point B all the way to Z an X amount of content in a semester or in a school year, but a part of a school library program, they need to be able to integrate all of these different standards from all of these different content areas. And so they should have at least a working knowledge of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish in the classroom. So with those standards, we start to see the role of the school librarian changing as well. So really, in December of 2015, we get the Every Student Succeeds Act, and school librarians worked very hard to get some very specific things written in there. So they're trying to ensure that school libraries are included in planning, application, the funding processes in state and local educational agencies. So collaborate with district personnel. All of these are connected to the digital learning competencies. So collaborate, that's leadership strand. Identify tools for measuring the effectiveness. There's data and assessment. Identify tools for measuring digital literacy skills, more data and assessment. And so you'll start to see that this is going to be a common theme where just about everything they do can help you meet those digital learning competencies, and in turn you can help them meet their digital learning competencies as well and help them with their assessment and evaluation rubric, and right back at you, they can help you develop artifacts for yours. Supporting effective instruction, Title II Part A from ESSA, provided for PD opportunities. That's a leadership role for school librarians. Funding allocated to instructional services. Literacy education for all. And this is also one thing that school librarians kind of also get pigeonholed into as well, where it's literacy, it's books, and I think, and I think I'm preaching to the choir when I say it, but you as classroom teachers know and understand that literacy goes beyond just leisure reading or just print textbooks or any other print materials, analog in nature. There's visual literacy, there's media literacy, there's information literacy, and so on and so forth, and cultural. It's that literacy education for all has a lot more meaning now, even a year and a half, just over a year after ESSA was passed. It has a lot more meaning now and takes on a lot more importance than what it did, I think, when it was passed in December 2015. There again, there's assessments, participate in planning PD, more collaboration and leadership. and promote co-teaching, which was specifically stated in the law. So states do have, and local educational agencies do have some flexibility in how they implement the Every Student Succeeds Act, but in a general sense, more and more LEAs are starting to incorporate school librarian feedback and ideas on how these laws and digital learning competencies and the 4 C's and so on and so forth are being integrated into the schools. And so this Essential School Library Program, this was a position statement from AASL in 2016. It came out 6 months after ESSA was passed. And so an adequately staffed school library includes a state-certified librarian, instructional leader, and teacher. Like I said, most school librarians, especially here in North Carolina, are former teachers. Supports the development of digital learning, participatory learning, inquiry learning, technology literacies, information literacies, again, connections to the digital learning competencies for digital content and instruction, up-to-date digital and print materials and technology, again, digital content and instruction strand for DLCs, and regular professional development and collaboration between classroom teachers and school librarians. Another leadership role for school librarians, but also giving you as classroom teachers to take over leadership roles and be leaders within your site, your specific school building, and then also give you opportunities and help you achieve larger leadership roles within the county and even the state. The Future Ready Schools initiative was launched by the Alliance for Excellence in Education in October 2014. If you're not too familiar with it, and the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Educational Technology helped expand the Future Ready Schools initiative to include librarian leadership. And so that librarian leadership is what you see before you. And really, these Future Ready goals are very similar to librarian goals, even before Future Ready, even before the DLCs were mandated by the North Carolina General Assembly back in 2013. A lot of these same goals that we're seeing an emphasis on digital learning and teaching have been librarian goals all along. And so these Future Ready goals really position school librarian media coordinators to play a prominent role in the U.S. Department of Education's National Education Technology Plan. It positions SLMCs to have play a prominent role in the North Carolina Digital Learning Plan that the Friday Institute had published back in the fall of 2015. And all of this comes through designing collaborative spaces and then connecting to the digital learning competencies with instructional partnerships, empowering students as creators, curating digital resources and tools, and facilitating professional learning. These are all things they do anyway. It's just kind of highlighting and reminding classroom teachers and administrators what school librarians already do and how they can support and strengthen what you do in the classroom. Even more of those competencies for future ready librarians, helping ensure equitable digital access, investing strategically in digital resources, and that comes with, they emphasize open educational resources there, so being able to find, organize, evaluate using established rubrics from achieve.org, their OER and equip rubrics, synthesizing and then creating or helping classroom teachers create open educational resource textbooks and content that they then can use in the classroom. Going beyond the school with community partnerships, student privacy, digital citizenship, and then of course leading beyond the library. And when they're speaking of leading beyond the library, they're talking about in the school building where they work. So collaborating, partnering with classroom teachers and administrators to achieve school goals and help students achieve academic success. So really all of those standards that I had shown on the screen earlier, whether P21, Next Gen Science, Common Core, the essential standards, they all focus on inquiry. Gather, comprehend, evaluate, synthesize, report on information, ideas, share and create. A lot of this is what librarians learn. They're trained to do in library school when they earn their master's degrees. Identify areas for research, apply knowledge and skills across content areas, make real-world or model real-world situations, authentic learning projects, problem-based, project-based, and then of course create and communicate what they, or assist students in creating and communicate what they've learned. But the focus is on inquiry. And so really now we're going to start getting into what does co-teaching look like between a classroom teacher and a school librarian. So the focus here on this Venn diagram is really just, it's complementary expertise is needed. Combined assessment strategies lead to success is really the main point. Not only co-teaching, but co-assessing, co-evaluating those student learning outcomes is extremely important. Why? Because bringing in the school librarian gives you a different perspective. Being able to reflect on what happened. Why didn't the students meet this goal or this objective? Why wasn't this group able to show competency or mastery of the content while all the other groups in class didn't? And it just gives another set of eyes, a different perspective when it comes to assessment and strategies. And I think that can be a very valuable resource that doesn't always get thought of. One thing about this diagram that I really don't like, under the teacher librarian expertise on the left-hand side of your screen, at the bottom it says collaborative leadership, but it doesn't include that under the classroom teacher expertise. I think that's wrong. Collaborative leadership isn't solely in the domain of the teacher librarian, but it's also in the domain of the classroom teacher. Both groups need to be able to take over a leadership role when it comes to co-teaching. It shouldn't solely rest on one group. And so some of these digital learning competencies and other digital learning initiatives like Future Ready Schools, Future Ready Librarians has already been written down before and shared before. So these are from the American Association of School Librarians, and I'm not going to dwell on these too much, but they are all connected to the digital learning competencies. And the digital learning competencies of here in North Carolina is really just kind of rephrasing what's already been said before and what has been done, maybe not everywhere, but in the more progressive school libraries and more progressive school districts in the country, where they take the bull by the horns and say, yes, we're going to move forward with this, and this is how we're going to do it. Back in 2013, AASL has already identified, all right, this is what they're doing to move into the digital realm. into blended learning, into hybrid learning, into flipped classrooms, into 3D printing, into maker spaces, and project-based learning, problem-based learning, and developing authentic assessments and authentic learning experiences. They've been done before, and I'm sure that you do some of these things. I'm sure that you know other teachers that you work with do some of these things, using technology to boost teaching and learning together. I'm sure you do that to one degree or another. And so it's just saying the same thing in a different way. And now the state of North Carolina is just saying, they're just making it official in mandating it starting July 1st. Some more recommended initiatives shared by the ASL in 2013. Again, you're already doing a lot of these things, creating culture experience across the school community and across the world, fostering creativity, innovation, play, building, experimentation. And so school librarians have been doing this for years as well, and can support and strengthen what you already do in the classroom because they're familiar with it. They've been doing it themselves. So now we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty and some more detail on what collaboration and co-teaching looks like. So the first two, coordination and cooperation, these are pretty standard. These focus on or are within the realm of the traditional roles and those boundaries that are placed between classroom teachers and school librarians. We get the coordination, organizing events, schedules for library use. Hey, can we come in next Tuesday during third period to do a little bit of research on photosynthesis? That's coordination. Cooperation, we start seeing book talks. We start seeing the school librarian providing instruction materials. So maybe the class doesn't go to the library, but a lot of, say, books on science experiments are brought to the class and shared, and so the students don't have to get out and visit the library. And providing other instruction materials, and saying, hey, I need to try and find a 3D image of the cardiovascular system of the human body. Can you help me out? Sure, says the school librarian. I can certainly find you that. And they find an app or another resource online for that. That's cooperation. And so there's a lot of that going on. But I hope over the last 33 minutes and 49 seconds, I've been able to convince you that school librarians can help do more than that. Co-planning of objectives, integrating the library curriculum, the Big Six for middle grades, the Super 3 for the younger crowd. Even the Big Six also extends into the high school levels as well, the library curriculum and then the content curriculum. So information literacy and knowing and learning how to research, knowing how to find, organize, analyze, synthesize, evaluate, and use information for a purpose isn't taught in isolation and separately from the content. It's infused, it's integrated. And so we're starting to see with the integrated instruction where it highlights the teaching role of the librarian and respects that teaching role, where it recognizes, yes, librarians, there's a reason why they call them teacher librarians, because they are teachers. It's even in state law, North Carolina state law. The definition of a teacher includes school librarian media coordinators. And much to the chagrin of my wife, it also includes school counselors as well, when she doesn't do much, if any, teaching at all. But co-teaching of jointly planned lessons, jointly evaluating students, and then the integrated curriculum, that's the entire school is at that level, or even extending beyond the school to the entire district. So these are really the four different levels, you could call them, of collaboration or co-teaching. Each one getting more and more involved, and the lines are blurred. It's not your turf is the library, my turf is my classroom. Those lines are blurred, and those traditional roles start to melt away, and there's the mutual respect for each other as teachers and educators, and developing meaningful learning experiences, and for the ultimate goal of student academic success takes priority. So it doesn't come easy. I'm not going to lie. It's not one day you walk into the library, see your school librarian sitting behind the circulation desk and say, hey, I think we have something in common, let's do this. Especially if you've never done it before, it's not going to come easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of effort on both the classroom teacher and the school librarian in order to make co-teaching a success. And so we start to see this beginning phase. And this beginning phase can last a couple months, a semester, a year. It all depends on how the classroom teacher and the school librarian mesh. I mean, even if their personalities are so different, that might be enough to never get beyond the beginning phase. But if you focus on those common interests and are willing to, and if you're motivated and committed to collaborate and focus on student learning, I think we can get beyond the beginning phase and start doing some wonderful things in the relation building phase or relationship building phase. And so after that, those first couple months or that first semester, we start to see this relationship building phase. And this can take a semester, it can take another school year. It can be a lengthy process, but it depends on being able to meet the frequency. It depends on the school culture. If this type of collaboration is important to the administrators, that'll trickle down to the classroom teachers and the school librarian as well. And of course, it depends on, like I had mentioned a minute ago, personalities, the participants. If a classroom teacher and a school librarian have drastic teaching styles, it can still work. It'll take more effort and time and patience and practice, but that might also cause the demise of the relationship as well. And then once we get past the relationship phase, we get into the productive phase, and looks like I forgot to take that URL out of there. Higher level of collaboration, we get more deeper thinking, more open about sharing ideas, more brainstorming, spitballing ideas up against the wall to see what sticks. And we start to see more and more group cohesion between educators. And then that's when students start to see a model collaboration that they should expect to take part in outside of school, whether they're in the workforce or they're working with friends to do something in an informal learning setting on the playground or at home. You start to see teacher-librarian collaboration that models, all right, how do groups work together for the same common goal, for the same common purpose. And if your students are one thing, they're very observant, and they pick up on those social cues between the teacher and the librarian, and pick up on that dynamic, that cohesion, and they can then apply that in their own lives as well. So what are our next steps? So I hope, as I've been talking, I've been able to give you some ideas or get the wheels turning on, all right, do you have a lesson or a unit that you're not happy with, that you could, you're thinking about revamping anyway? Why not try and bring the school librarian in? Or you might already have a personal relationship with your school librarian. You know about their interests and have already identified common interests between the two of you, and say, hey, maybe this could work. And so making co-planning happen. And so I've adapted this a little bit from this Elizabeth Stein Co-Teaching Without Boxes or Boundaries blog post. Let me make that full size. So this is in the Google Doc that I shared with you, the link to it. And so it just kind of, it gives some ideas on how to get started with co-teaching. And being able to recognize and freely express each other's expertise, whether it's developing learning objectives or finding innovative and engaging activities for your students to participate in. And really, it really comes down to this second point. Let me blow that up a little bit. Make co-planning happen no matter what. It's a commitment. It really is. And it's a commitment that has a common goal. Creating meaningful learning activities to help students achieve academic success. That's really all we're trying to do here. And of course, communication as well is a huge part of making co-planning happen and co-teaching work and successful. And also focusing on the positive aspects of the relationship, not just criticizing, make it constructive criticism, identifying the positive aspects, building on those, but then also recognizing the fact that these relationships aren't going to be perfect. There's going to be bumps, there's going to be bruises, there's going to be rough spots during the relationship phase before you make it into the deeper aspects of the co-teaching relationship and collaboration. So another thing as well, and I'll end it with this, is the North Carolina Teacher Evaluation Rubric. So I've identified at least a few things here where co-teaching with the school librarian can help you develop artifacts that can help you or show that you've achieved either accomplished or distinguished in some of these standards. So standard 1, element 2B, I'm sorry, element 1B. To show, to be distinguished in demonstrating leadership in the school, collaborating with colleagues to improve the quality of learning. And like I said, if anything, that's going to be your main motivating factor behind co-teaching in the first place. You want to improve the student learning experience. And documenting that and submitting it as an artifact on your evaluation helps both you and the school librarian in the long run, above and beyond what you're already doing with your students. 1D, actively participates, promotes, and provides strong supporting evidence for implementation of initiatives to improve education. That includes working together to implement and integrate the digital learning competencies, digital instructional materials, open educational resources, instructional technology into the classroom as well. And then, of course, other school-specific or local education agency-specific initiatives outside of the larger state ones and national ones that we've talked about today. Standard 2, Element 2B, promotes deep understanding of cultures through the integration of culturally sensitive materials and ideas. And that's a lot of those resources are going to come from the school library, whether in print form or using or recognizing the school librarian as a reference point and say, hey, I need some help finding instruction materials on this, whether they're open educational resources or from other resources like Discovery Education that the district pays for. That's all included there. Oops. Pretty much all of Standard 4 as well. And that's when you're starting to get into, not just starting, but are getting into facilitating learning for your students, whether it's the accomplished or distinguished area. Standard 4, this co-teaching with the school librarian can directly support you in the development of artifacts for almost every single one of those elements. The Standard 3, Element 3A, 3B, 3C is included in or can be impacted with co-teaching as well, aligning their instruction with the standard course of study, assist colleagues in applying strategies to their classrooms, B, extending knowledge of subject beyond content in their teaching, especially, and sparking students' curiosity for learning beyond the required coursework. And C as well, or I'm sorry, yeah, C as well. Collaborating with teachers from other grades or subject areas. And so a lot of these that are in the teacher evaluation rubric are very similar in the school librarian rubric as well. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities that not only helps your students, but then also helps you personally and professionally with your evaluation rubrics. So I hope today I've given you guys some ideas on I'll kick back to today's takeaways. I hope we've clearly defined the role of a school library media coordinator and how that role has changed with a lot of these digital learning initiatives that have been building over the last few years. We made some connections to the North Carolina digital learning competencies as well. And co-teaching with the school librarian is going to have a direct impact on your students' academic success. It is, especially when it comes to reading, especially when it comes to writing, and when school librarians in a lot of schools are instructional technology consultants and facilitators. It can have a direct impact on how you integrate and infuse technology into your classroom as well. And so I hope at the end, I was also to help give you a basic action plan on how you can reach out, how you can start with common interests. Talk to your school library media coordinator and get the ball rolling and start building a relationship that fosters into a co-teaching relationship that'll have a direct impact on your students. that is all I have for today. Do you guys have any questions? And I'll pick up the video feed. Do you guys have any questions of what we've talked about today? Ideas? Yeah, I think, Sue, you're right. Librarians have had job changes over the last few years, and it's been with a lot of the school librarians I talk to at our Librarian to Librarian Networking Summit that the Teaching Resources Center hosts every spring here at ECU. And I talk to them, and a lot of them seem very overwhelmed because they're not sure what to expect on a yearly basis. Yeah, and that's great to see that that librarians are becoming more and more involved in class projects, and hopefully they're part of the planning process and not just cooperating or coordinating instruction materials or coordinating time in the library to use print resources, or simply teaching how to find teaching your students how to find resources within NC Wise Owl and the databases in there. Hopefully it's a bit more involved than just coordination like we had talked about. Any other questions or comments? Well, if there's none, that's all I've got for you guys today. Thanks for stopping by. And at the end of today, I have another session at 3:30. I'll shoot out an email to everyone who attended this session and the next one with a short little survey to fill out as well. So until next time, I almost forgot. A couple reminders. Hopefully you guys were able to visit the Eastern North Carolina Instructional Technology Collaborative blog. We're trying to develop that. A couple people from who attended my last session a couple weeks ago, Navigating Instructional Technology Standards, had expressed interest in writing blog posts and sharing their experiences with educators, not just in Eastern North Carolina, but throughout the state. If you're interested in that, please let me know. I think a number of you have already signed up for the professional learning community, so just a reminder for that. And the link to that is right there and is also in the Google Doc link that I had shared with you at the beginning of the session. Ed Camp is coming up. ECU is hosting our second annual Ed Camp on Saturday, April 8th. And there's plenty of information at that link and to register. And if you have any questions, contact Jason or Holly, my colleagues over in the College of Education. And then, of course, just a reminder of all of our future sessions coming up for the rest of the semester. Again, my contact information. I'm always looking forward to answering your questions. If you have any or need any advice, I'll do my best to help you in your specific situation. So that's all I got. Have a great day, everybody.